and welcome to another edition of Italian America Long Island. My name is Dave Anthony Setadicati. Today we're very happy to have a wonderful young woman with us. Her name is Elizabeth Walsh, and she is going to be sharing with us her love of Italian language and Italian culture. She's a fellow student of Italian language and culture, as I am, and we met in an Italian class. I've asked her to come and share some of her experiences with us. Welcome.
Ciao Dave, grazie mille per invitarmi qui. Sono molto felice di essere qui e di essere invitata in
Oh, è tutto un privilegio a me, è tutto un privilegio. So, benvenuta, Elizabeth.
Grazie.
I know you have some Italian heritage. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, my grandfather's grandfather was from Lucca, which is in Tuscany. It's a little bit north of Pisa and to the west of Florence. So it's a small town. It's famous for a few different things, but it has a beautiful tower in the town that has trees growing on the top of it. It's almost like a mini forest on top of the tower. So it's a beautiful town. I went there very, very briefly during my time in Italy.
So tell us a little bit about your connection to Italy and in Italian language.
Well, I started learning Italian in college after having studied French for a very long time. I fell in love with the French language, and so I thought I want to share this passion with another language, and so I decided to pursue Italian in college. And I did that for a few years before deciding to study abroad, and I went to Siena, Italy. That's also in Tuscany. It's a little bit further south of Florence, and it's famous for a big horse race called the Palio, which happens twice a summer, and it's a very, very passionate day in Siena with lots of tourists, but it's especially important for the people that live there, and we can talk about the Palio a little bit later if you like. But I studied abroad for a semester in Siena and got to travel throughout Italy during that time and went on family vacations there, and now for my current job get to go there maybe once a year, twice a year, most recently to Sicily and up north on the coastline near Genoa. So I like to try and keep somewhat attached to it if I can with travels or studies.
So tell us a little bit about your time in Siena and what kind of a program it was, and what you actually did.
It was a program called CET, and we called it CET in Italian because of the C sounds that you make. And it was great because it catered to students who were introductory Italian level all the way through a little bit more advanced, and I found myself placed in the more advanced level once we took our placement tests on the ground in Siena, and consequently I got to enroll in the Università degli Stranieri di Siena, which is a university for foreigners in Siena. And so I got to meet people from all over the world who were kind of in the same boat, wanting to pursue their passion for Italian language. So the exposure, like I was saying before, was much more in my favor there. So that was fantastic. I took classes both through my program, CET, and the university. So I got to spend some time with American students and spend some time with foreigners and Italians, and kind of vary my subject material, vary my speaking partners. Also, while I was there, I reached out and tried to meet other Italians who were interested in having conversations with Americans. So we would spend half the time speaking English and half the time speaking Italian as kind of a partnership to help each other. So that was really helpful.
Now, the Czech Program, was that offered through your college in America?
Yes, it's a separate entity, but it works with a variety of different colleges. So I'm not sure if it's actually still in existence anymore. I haven't looked in a while. I think it is.
Okay, but you were an Italian student in college.
Yes.
So you were studying languages. You weren't intending to be a teacher or a translator or anything like that?
I think I toyed with all those ideas.
Like, what's the practical use of learning this language, right?
Yes, and it's a funny thing because a lot of people don't end up doing anything with the major that they choose in college. So I'm not sure if I knew exactly what I was going to be doing. Part of me thought, oh, I'd love to work for the UN, or I'd love to translate, or maybe just as an excuse to go back to Italy, or go back to France, or travel. Just have that skill in my back pocket for any job, really. And funny enough, it does actually come in handy for my current job. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, tell us about your current job because it's so unusual.
I work on a private airline, a private plane. I'm a flight attendant, and we don't have a set schedule. We don't have a set destination list. We just go wherever, whenever, and we're always ready, 24/7. And we went to Sicily earlier this year, a couple times actually. We went up to Genoa, like I said. We've been to Florence and Rome and Naples and all over the place for that. It's not specifically a Italian destination list, but we go all over the place. It just so happens that I got to go and use my skills there, which is great because I'm the only one on our crew that speaks other languages, so I get to kind of use that and exercise that when we're abroad and serve as a translator of sorts for our crew.
Was that one of the considerations when they hired you, or was it one of the requirements?
No, it wasn't. It just came in handy. I guess it can't hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. It can't hurt. That's a wonderful thing. I imagine that most of your clientele are wealthy people.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us some more about your travels. When you were studying, did you get an opportunity to travel on the weekends maybe and visit different interesting places?
Yes, that was one of the highlights of being over there. I think there's the beauty in itself of getting to kind of assimilate into one town and live life as a local there, but then there's also the experience of going to other places around there. So we went to Lucca, like I had mentioned. We went to Viareggio and Venice for their different Carnival celebrations, Carnevale, and that was so much fun. I've never seen a bigger parade set up than in Viareggio. They had the most detailed, huge, beautiful, creative floats that you've ever seen. A lot of them as sort of jokes about soccer players or politicians, and so it's kind of a social commentary at the same time of being a spectacle. And that was Viareggio's a cool beachside town, so we had the water right there and all the people throwing confetti and the kids running around with noisemakers, and it was so much fun. And then Venice, of course, is one of the most amazing places to go for Carnevale, and everyone was donning the beautiful masks that you see in traditional Carnevale fashion, but then people were also taking on a more modern twist, and we saw such great group costumes. I remember a group dressed as flies, like the insects, and they ran around buzzing at people, and then they'd go and smush themselves up against restaurant windows and buzz at the people that were eating inside, just like a fly would. There were devils running around, jumping on old wells, and there were people in the gondolas in costume, and it was just fantastic. So much fun, and the city was absolutely packed. You could barely move, but you were loving every minute of it, so you didn't even mind. So that was a very cool experience. We also made sure to go wine tasting in Chianti region, and loved that. It kicked me off on a wine-loving journey after that, and I went to different countries and tried wine in all these different places and learned more and more about it. And recently got certified as a sommelier, thanks to thanks to getting my first sip in Chianti. I guess you're gonna start at the best spot possible, so that was great. Went down to Naples. We went to Capri and Ischia, the islands that are a little further south, off of Naples, Pompeii. Recently for work, I got to go wine tasting in the Piedmont region. I got some great Barolos and Barbera, Barbaresco. So yeah, it's been great to travel all over the place in Italy. We also jumped around to other places in Europe, Scotland, Spain, Ireland, while I studied abroad there, because airfare was so cheap you could just jump around. But we definitely made sure to travel within Italy too, since obviously that's what we were there for. So
I can see how passionate you are about Italy when you spoke about your travels there. That's really, really amazing stuff. What do you admire most about Italian culture and Italian lifestyle?
I think a lot of people would probably agree that they seem to put personal and family life at a higher level of priority than we might do here. They make sure to take advantage of their time off and their downtime to spend time with their friends and their family, and you eat slowly and you take a coffee and you make sure that people around you are the most important thing. So I like that. It's the priorities, I think, are a little bit different.
Yeah. Would you ever consider living in Italy?
Oh yeah.
You would?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You would. What would be some of the downsides to that, to living in Italy? What would you think that you'd have to sacrifice?
I'm a very organized person, and I like to make sure I get things done.
Yes.
And that's not exactly how the Italians work.
Yeah, the Italian lifestyle is a lot freer than that, right? It's like, it's almost 10 o'clock. Yeah, it's a little bit, we'll get there when we get there.
Right, so that I think I'd probably struggle with a little bit. Stores aren't necessarily open all the time, and for my job, going over there and trying to take care of catering orders, for example, trying to get catering at a certain time on a Sunday, that's not necessarily going to happen, and so you need to have a lot of different options lined up in case it doesn't work. So, yeah, just dealing with the slower, more relaxed way of life is a good thing, but at the same time, not always the best for what you need to get done.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, you had mentioned before the Palio, which takes place twice a summer. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experiences?
So Siena is divided into different neighborhoods that they call Contrade. So each Contrada is its own little entity, and the Sienese take it very seriously. People not only live in the Contrada, but they are, I think they're even baptized into the Contrada. If they marry, there are specific churches. It's very, very community-centered, and it's a big deal. I've even heard that some men wear wedding rings and then they wear Contrada rings because people are so attached to their different neighborhoods. Each Contrada is symbolized by different things. They have little coats of arms that have different animals on it, and that's the symbol of each neighborhood. And it's a very, very specific loyalty that these people have to each Contrada. So I lived in L'Aquila, the eagle. And there's all kinds of great ones. The caterpillar, the snail. There's a bunch of different Contradas. And every year for the Palio, the big horse race that I mentioned, every Contrada gets to have one horse and one jockey enter this race. And the race takes place in the Piazza del Campo in Siena, which is the main piazza, the main square. If you've ever seen pictures of Siena, it's where the giant bell tower is, the Campanile. and it's all stone, brick, hard surface on the campo, but they have this horse race there. I'm not sure if they cover it with anything, but the town gets packed. Not only does everyone from the surrounding area come in, but tourists come in from all over Europe, all over the world even, to see this horse race. And whoever wins the horse race, whichever Contrada, gets bragging rights like you wouldn't believe, and it's a big, big deal. So just hearing about it all year long, getting that hype, it's just the coolest thing, and I can't believe that we had to leave right before it happened.
What do you think is your connection with Italy and Italian culture? I mean, what drew you to that?
I think, obviously there's probably some sort of familial connection with...
A DNA part of you.
You're right,
a little bit of your DNA in there from your great-grandfather.
Exactly, and then there's always the food connection, which I think everyone has. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to connect to Italian food. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot was just my love of languages in general. I still have that, and I still want to learn other languages after this, or alongside this. But I also was studying art history a little bit in college, and so I, was mesmerized by a lot of the paintings and sculptures that we saw in class, and getting a chance to see them in person was, a big inspiration for the Italian language. And
when you were in Italy studying, did you go to see the statue of David?
Yes, of course.
When we went, I have to say, that was some experience. I have never had that experience seeing his statue before. It was just the most amazing feeling to see this statue. To me, that was really almost alive. It looked like it was alive to me. I mean, and when you see it in photographs, you'll usually see the front. But when we went in the museum, you could walk 360 around the statue and to see the back of the statue, which is amazing, and to hear the story of the statue and how it was made from a piece of inferior marble, and Michelangelo had to take that into account, and there's actually a blue vein going through the calf that you can see that's liable to being cracked, and they had to be so careful with it, but it's just a wonderful experience. And I guess there's the two cultures that are the greatest to study for art history: French culture and Italian culture. There's so much.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a connection with art and language, in people's brains, at least in my brain. And I think there's a certain creativity and romanticism that kind of connects those two. And it's everything. It's walking through cobblestone streets, it's smelling pizza coming out of a shop, it's everything. It all comes together in this beautiful aesthetic, and you can't really put a finger on it or label it, but that's what drew me to Italy, is that feeling and that all-encompassing sensory experience. Does that make sense?
It certainly does. Yeah. And your theory about the language and the art is very interesting, because once you start to study foreign language, see, with French, I think it's a little bit closer to English in the structure and the grammar. Not that it's exactly the same, but a lot of people might think, well, when you study a foreign language, here's how you say it in English. I go to the store. So you just go and learn those words in the Russian or German or French or Italian, and you just say it the same way, but it's not like that. You have to learn, when you learn French, you learn Italian, you have to think the way an Italian person thinks, and put it in words that the Italian people would use, which is not always a one-to-one correspondence.
Right.
The same thing for any language. So you're really not learning the language, you're learning how the person speaks. So your idea that the language has something to do, some connection with the art, I think is entirely valid, because the way that Italian people think, or the way that French people think, may offer them greater artistic opportunities like for us in English, and it seems in America the only thing we think about is money. And rather than, you know, life and art and expressing ourselves, it's more about how can I use this to make money. In fact, they even started by asking you, when you studied language, what was your intention, meaning how are you going to use this to make money? So Elizabeth, for you personally, what do you find is the most challenging aspect of learning a new language?
I think finding time to set aside and actually dedicate to learning that language, as well as finding opportunity to practice. It's very difficult if you're not going to that country to find someone who also speaks that language or is trying to speak that language that you can converse with. So those are challenges that arise. Of course, every day they're coming out with new online opportunities or courses that can help you get around that. But sometimes I find myself mixing the languages. I didn't have this problem as much when I was younger, but now I'm starting to notice it more as I'm getting a little bit older, that I'll mix them, especially Italian and Spanish. I'll start mixing sometimes if I'm out of practice. If I've had the opportunity to practice for a while, then I can compartmentalize a little bit better. But
well, that's because you're so talented and you know so many languages.
I like the way you twisted that. That was good.
Well,
I like
no,
that.
that's true. I mean, I wouldn't have that problem, you know. But so that's wonderful. Now, have you done the Rosetta Stone at all?
I haven't actually. I was thinking about trying to tackle Spanish. I have some Spanish background. A lot of it just deducing from the Italian or from the French, or just from when I was a teacher. I speak a lot with students who are from outside of the country, who are from native Spanish-speaking countries. So I kind of, I guess, picked it up, but didn't have much of a formal education in that way. So I was thinking about Rosetta Stone, but like I mentioned to you before, I'm not exactly sure if their method is what I would gravitate towards. I like a structure. I like to learn the subject, learn the verb, learn the conjugation, and
Like
build.
grammatical
Yeah.
type of approach. Well, Anna Maria, our current teacher, is very much like that.
Yes.
She's very much like that, very much like a direct instruction, and I appreciate that, I really do, rather than having to deduce, well, this is how you
Right.
do it from what we just did, and extract the rules from that. Give me the rules, and then I'll try and apply them, So.
Exactly.
Right.
To be fair, I've never really looked at Rosetta Stone, so I just heard that it's a little bit of a different methodology.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. It's not that direct method. I did the Italian Rosetta Stone. Went through all 5 levels, and I thought it was very good.
Yeah.
I did. I enjoyed it. They have very good speakers on it.
Great.
It's very cleverly put together. Very cleverly put together. But the thing that was lacking for me, and that made it difficult for me, was the lack of the direct instruction. This is how you conjugate a verb. And what you're supposed to do with them is, through this series, they'll use the verb in the first person singular, and then maybe later on in another series it's in the second person singular and in the third person singular, and then you have to remember all those different instances and then try to put the rules together for yourself. And that's not the way that I learned foreign language, way back in the Stone Age, where they gave you the clay tablet, you had to put the cuneiform writing in there. All right. Well, Elizabeth, you are certainly one of the most well-traveled and most fascinating people that we've had on the show.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you and hearing you speak about Italy and language. And I want to wish you the best, of course, in all your endeavors in life. And I see sometime in the future you're going to make a fantastic teacher for somebody in language. I'm telling you, you've really got it down. I can see that. Maybe when your footloose days and your traveling days are over, maybe you go to Italy, you become a teacher of English in Italy.
Who knows?
You certainly love it, I think.
I do, and it's very nice to be able to share it with other people who do. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much. Hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Michelangelo Buonarroti, the greatest artist who ever lived. Sculptor, painter, and architect, his works are among the most well-known in the entire world. Born in 1475 in Caprese, Tuscany, he is most often associated with Florence and Rome. It was in these two cities that he created his most famous masterpieces, where they can still be found today. During his lifetime, he was called Il Divino, the Divine One, and was known for his terribilità, or sense of awe-inspiring grandeur. He created two of his greatest works before he was 30, and he was still creating masterpieces in his 70s. He died at the age of 88, which was well beyond the life expectancy of the time. At 24 years of age, he completed his famous Pietà, which was commissioned by the French ambassador to the Holy See. When you are near this masterpiece, you don't just view it, you feel it. The sorrow of the Virgin Mother holding her crucified Son is as palpable as the marble he used to sculpt it. It is this quality of creating emotions that elevate the work of Michelangelo to a magical status. The Pietà is now located in St. Peter's Basilica. The statue of David is another of Michelangelo's most famous and amazing works. This statue, created from a huge block of Carrara marble, was begun by other sculptors, but the project was terminated and lay dormant for 25 years. Finally, the Florentine authorities commissioned 26-year-old Michelangelo, who took 2 more years to complete the masterpiece. To be in the presence of the original piece is to experience wonder, courage, and awe. It captures the moment when the young David has decided to battle Goliath, and his determination and courage are captured forever in this stone. Not only was Michelangelo the greatest sculptor who ever lived, he also ranks among the greatest painters. According to some authorities, his frescoes in the Sistine Chapel are regarded as one of the major artistic accomplishments of human civilization. His depiction of God touching the hand of Adam is known to every art student all over the world and any lover of fine art. Finally, it was Michelangelo who designed a major portion of St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican at age 74. What an amazing artist! What an amazing man! Bravo, Michelangelo!